All right, today we are going to learn how to sew a tote bag, and I think we're just going to get started in just a few moments. That way we can make sure everything's together and all the audio is okay and stuff like that. Sorry, it'll just be 1 minute so that way we can make sure we have everything and the audio is okay and stuff. So we'll just give it a sec. Alrighty. So I think we are all good to start today's session. Today we are going to go through the tote bag and begin sewing it. So thank everyone who's going to join or everyone who's going to watch later. Okay, is the audio better? I got some feedback that it's not as great. I was having to wear my mask for a second. Is it maybe a bit better? Before I start and get into it? Sadly, I cannot bring the mic any further in, otherwise I would be on top of my fabric. So I'll do my best to instead project a little bit more. Okay, now we can get started. So today we are doing the essential tote bag. It's going to be a few pieces of fabric, and we are doing it on the Husqvarna Viking Brilliance 75Q, almost like 750. The Q looks like a 0, but that's okay. So we are first going to start out, and we're going to start out with our exterior fabrics. You can't see too much in the view right there, but you're going to start out with 2 exterior fabrics. This black fabric right here is going to be my bottom fabric for the bottom of the bag, and this is going to be eventually what's going to be on the outside, what we're going to see when we carry it around. We're also going to have 2 sets of this. So this is the first set. We're going to have a second set as well. And because I cannot have so much fabric in the frame at one time, I think I'm just going to go one piece by piece. And we're going to get started. So to start out, we are using the exterior pieces. The black fabric is 17 by 12 inches. Oh, that's my bad. It's actually 17 by 8 inches for the bottom lining. So that would be the black here. And the exterior right here is actually 17 by 12. Your lining is going to be 17 by 19. But when you go to do the exterior and matching up the bottom and the top, you're going to place them right sides facing together. There is no right side on the black because it is both black on both sides. But the right side on this fabric is the colorful patterned one, and the bottom is just sort of muted and not very colorful. So you're going to place both the edges of these fabrics together like so. They line up perfectly like that. And then you're going to start to pin them. I use these really fun pins because they're not pins, they're more like clippers, because we don't have the safety pins or anything like that you might regularly use. So I'm just going to clip along here, and we're just going to piece these 2 fabrics together. And my fabric doesn't fly everywhere. And like I said, today we are using the Husqvarna Viking Brilliance 75Q. It's a really fun shade of pink. So now that I have the fabric all set up, I'm actually going to show you the machine. So this is what the machine looks like. I don't know how to get a better angle on this right now, but as long as you can see how I'm sewing, and that's all that matters. So we're going to take all our excess fabric, bring it to the left. And for this one, on the seam allowance for here, it is actually going to be a half seam allowance for here. So we're going to line it up. And it does have a measuring plate right here. The base needle plate is going to measure. Oh, this one does not. Sorry, I've been working on a different machine today. So we're going to measure that. This one does not have exact measurements. Some of the other machines do. That's okay. I'm going to take off one of my clips, bring my needle plate down, and then I'm going to start sewing. If my foot pedal would come any closer. Alrighty. So I apparently have been given a reputation as a fast sewer. I don't think it's that fast, but I'm actually going to bring this up just one more time. Over here, down, and now we are going to sew. And we're just going to sew all the way along here. And you can stop at every clip and take it out. I find that sometimes I could just rip them off real fast, or they even slide down if you're going fast enough. But again, you don't have to go super fast. Just slide them out. Bring them over here, and there you go. And then you're going to cut your thread. Alrighty. And then we're gonna bring the camera back here. And I'll show you what this seam looks like. So you're actually going to fold it out so both right sides are facing forward. And because we sewed where we did, the stitch is actually hidden. It's going to look a little something like this. Now, normally to make sure this is all flat, you would iron it down. However, my iron is over there. So we're actually just going to finger press. And you're going to press the seam in towards your bottom fabric. In this case, it is the black fabric. I'm going to press that in. It looks a little something like this. And then you're going to stitch a seam on here as well. That's going to be an 1/8 of an inch seam allowance on there. So there is a ruler on the Brilliant 75Q actually at the very bottom of the machine. The other machine I was working with, it was different placement. But this one on the bottom is here, so you can measure down there if you wish. Make sure when you're sewing these seams and everything that all the excess fabric is on the left side. It just makes it easier for yourself. And then I'm gonna fix the camera one more time. All right, there we go. And then I'm gonna bring my foot pedal down. Make sure all my fabric isn't bunched up. And then I'm gonna make sure all my sides are, all my seams are pressed, and then I'm gonna start. Looks like shove. Okay, though. Bring that just like that. Yep, that's all right. I just didn't want it to bunch up and then stitch over itself. So I'm not sure. There we go. Now I can bring it down again. I'm going to bring my needle down exactly where I need it. There we go. Bring my foot pedal down again. And there we go. There we go. I'm going to snip my thread. Fix the camera again. There we go. So, by the end of this, your seam should be looking a little like that. Should be about that eighth of an inch allowance on that seam. I do have some extra thread here. We're going to cut that off. But, like I said earlier, we actually do want 2 pieces of this. So I'm going to go grab the other sections. And before the stream, I was actually able to do this part because it is the same thing as I just did. So I thought it might get a bit repetitive if I did both of them back to back. I feel like you guys got it. And now that both those sides are done, we have 2 sets. We can take them on over here, and we are actually going to sew the interior lining for the tote bag. So what we were sewing previously was the exterior. Now we are going to do the interior, the inside, you know, where you get all your screws and stuff. However, we are using white today. I have found that the interior, or I have actually been told that if you do the exterior white, it is a bit more prone to staining. So the size of our interior lining is going to be 17 by 19 inches, like I said earlier. And what we're actually going to do here is we are going to stitch along all sides except the top. We're going to leave the top open. So we're just going to line up everything. Again, you can use your pins or you can leave it to face. Make sure all your excess fabric is on the left side. And I'm actually going to use pins to make sure my fabric doesn't go anywhere. Clips. I keep saying pins. It's just clipping it. And then on this seam, you are actually going to want a 1/2 inch seam allowance. I just have to remind myself of that. The seam allowance on your interior lining is going to be 1/2 inch. Sorry, that sound is probably great. Okay. So now we're going to start sewing. I will fix the camera again in just a moment. Sorry, the workstation is a little bit cramped at times, so I'm just gonna change it up. There we go. Now you can see sewing. Again, there's a ruler at the bottom of the Brilliant 75Q, so you can measure it out there, or leave it to fate. And now we are going to start stitching. Okay, and once you get towards the corner here, what you're going to do is you're going to get to about here. You're going to want to make sure there's another 1/2 inch allowance at the bottom. And because the Husqvarna has a nice pivot feature, make sure your needle is down. And then you're actually going to pivot the needle in the new direction you want to take it. This is really something very nice and convenient for when you're doing something like this, piecing together the inner lining on your new tote bag. Or maybe you're doing a design, stuff like that. And then you're going to keep going. I didn't pin this side because I like to live recklessly. And then, once again, make sure your needle is down. And you're going to make sure there's about 1/2 inch allowance. And then you're going to pivot. Needle down. All right, and then you're going to take it back up again. Oh, looks like my fabric. All right. Oh, there goes my clips. That's very cool. All right. So now you have your inner lining done. It should look like there's no stitching at the top. I'll show you actually the better view. So there's no stitching on the top here, but it goes around and then it corners and it goes around 3 edges out of 4. So your inner lining is now done. not done, but we can set it aside for now. And then there's two exterior pieces. You're going to make sure they are, let me refresh my memory. You're going to make sure they are right sides together. So that is the patterned piece against patterned piece. So take your two sets. You're going to line them up. So here's one set, right side up, and taking the other, and then I'm going to pin it where it meets. So, just like that, they're stuck together. We're going to pin, and again, we are going to leave the top open. And along the sides here. And the seam allowance on here is the same as in the interior lining, so no need to worry about that. 1/2 inch. Make sure your right sides are together, patterned together. Bring down your petal. And then, needle down when you pivot, yet again. There, so. So what I actually did there is I went a little bit over my seam allowance, so I reverse stitched. I probably should have narrated that as I did it, but I didn't. So that is what just happened, and then I forgot to unhit reverse. So hopefully nobody looks there, but you know what? Happy mistakes. Down again. Line up my needle where I need it. With my last stitch. And then bring it down and continue sewing. All right. Go, and that's what I just did again. I just reverse stitched over my seam already there to make sure I had the exact measurements of the 1/2 inch seam allowance. Then I pivoted. My fabric, so there we go. Okay. Cut your fabric. Like I said again, stressing that with the pivoting, make sure your needle is down when you do that. Bring it back. So your exterior should look like it's inside out because it is, and it should just look like the interior lining we did. See that? Alrighty. And now that we have the interior lining and the exterior done, we're going to make the straps. I actually pre-made a strap. This is what it looks like. That nice color right there. But again, I pre-made that just so that for the class we didn't have to do 2 of each because the strap actually can take a little bit longer despite looking a little bit easier. And for the strap we used 2 pieces of 4x30 fabric, and then you fold it longwise and you can flatten it with an iron with the raw edges, and then you're going to sew them. So this one actually requires find the exact amount, I believe it is a 1/2 inch seam allowance on that initial seam. So make sure your raw edges are lined up, just like that. And then you're going to take a 1/2 inch seam allowance on those. Let me fix the camera for just a second. Here we go, up close and personal. And then you're going to bring it up. Make sure you've measured down here or with a ruler, wherever. And then you're going to take it, bring your little down, and sew. All right. So your initial seam should look something like that. And then this is the very fun and cool part. You are going to turn the sleeve inside out. You can do it with your fingers. It is painstaking and not fun, I think, for most people. If it is fun for you, that's okay. So what I actually have here is I have a loop turner. Rachel was kind enough to bring this in, but I do know we'll be getting these. Right? Yes, we actually did order a few in, so we will be getting these in store, which I'm very excited about. It has essentially a very small hook that it will focus on. And now you get the up-close view of me really learning how to do this. So you're going to slide your loop turner all the way through, bunch it up, kind of like this. And then where on the side where your seam is not, you're going to hook it. You're going to hook it, maybe. Then you're going to pull. All right, and you're going to pull it through. And then once you have it hooked, you're going to pull along the rest of the fabric. And you would essentially do this with your fingers if you did not. Oh, and then hooked it. Oh, we have come to a standstill. 1 second. This will be the longest part of the class. I almost had it, but you know, we all learn. All right. Try 2. All right, I'm going to pull it with purpose so it does not come unhooked again. There we go. And it should come out the other side just like that. You're going to pull it the rest of the way through. Just like that. Alrighty. It should hook something like that. It should hook through your fabric just a teeny bit. That way it doesn't fall off. And then you just unhook it. And now you have the beginning of your sleeve. Normally you would press this down with an iron at the seam. but we live dangerously here. So we are not going to do that, but I do recommend doing it for better results. Instead, I'm going to go through with my little loop turner actually, and I'm just going to press outwards on the seams, just like this. Make sure they're all the way out when I go to sew. And we're actually going to do a top stitch on this sleeve. We're going to do 2 top stitches, one along each side. And these top stitches are actually going to have an 1/8 of an inch seam allowance, so not much at all. And this is the sleeve, this is the strap that I did and I ironed down, so it does look a bit more fancy. Alrighty. And we are going to start sewing on one side. Alrighty, we're all set. So we're going to bring it up. Oh, there we go. All right. Okay. And you're going to do the same on the opposite side. So this is what your top stitch should look like. Not as wobbly as mine, but you know. We're going to do it on the other side. Oh, looks like my bobbin thread is low. So I'm actually gonna, better to be safe rather than sorry. I'm gonna cut the fabric there. And of course it has to happen in the middle of a sleeve, but that's all right. We live and we die. We don't die. So I'm just gonna take my bobbin out, and if you ever want to know how to do this on the machines, you can always come in for an owner's class or a beginner's class. And it looks like Rachel actually had one prepared for me. That's so nice of her. Everyone give it up for Rachel. And I'm gonna throw this back in. Align it. But again, if you ever want to know how to thread your machine, we do have owner's classes. Or do the bobbin or anything like that. So, let me see where I was. And I will tell you straight up that this strap does not look anything like the other strap, but you know what? Diversity is the slice of life. All right, line up my thread, and then we're gonna up, up, up. That's all right, that's okay. Okay, we did it. The sleeve is done, and you know what? It's the thought that counts. It truly is. So, now we have 2 sleeves, one slightly better than the other, but that's all right. And now we are going to put them on our exterior. This is where it gets pretty crazy. So those exterior pieces that we had, the ones that are now inside out and the top is open, we are actually going to measure 4 inches in from either seam. And then we are going to pin the raw edges of the sleeves there on either side. So if you have a fabric marker on hand, something that will show up against your fabric, which I learned is a thing that does not happen on black fabric when you are trying. Just make sure you have a nice fabric marker. You're going to mark that 4 inches so that it's easily identifiable. Alright, those two should be marked, and you can do two, and I actually, maybe it's recommended that you mark the other side of the fabric as well, but I feel like once you have one sleeve lined up, you can line up the other sleeve pretty well if you're not going for perfection. Alrighty, and what you're going to do with this, your raw edges, you're going to line up to your 4 inches. You're going to line it up, and then you're going to pin it. And you are going to do this on either side, so do not pin both sides of the exterior, as you'll be pinning both straps on either side. There we go. Just like that. You want to make sure your strap, when you flip it out, it is going to be wearable. It's not going to be twisted or anything like that. And then you're going to do the same on the other side. I do this visually. You can choose not to do it visually. There we go. Both sides are now pinned. And now you are going to tack these on essentially with the machine. You're not going to go all the way around. You are just going to go on the strap and onto the exterior lining itself. Make sure when you're doing this, you separate both sides of the exterior lining. And then you're going to remove the clip because you cannot do this over the clip. That would not be a good idea. And so on the sleeve allowances, you are going to do a 1/4 seam, a 1/4 of an inch seam, and you tack these down. And I'm going to reverse just to make sure it's tacked. Okay, it's just like that. You are not tacking onto the exterior, but you are tacking onto the sleeve. And you're going to do this with all of the straps with a 1/4 seam inch allowance. Oh, me again. Please always forget to turn off your reverse. It is a bad habit that I have. And just like that. You're going to do this with all. Phew! Bless me. Anywho. Oh, it's on reverse again, but I caught it. I like reversing back across the tacking of the strap because I feel like when you reverse it, it really does hold the strap in place better. When I was doing a tote bag earlier today, I feel like one of the straps kind of got flimsy. So it's preference though, I suppose. It never says to do that explicitly in the instructions of anything. So. There we go. All right. Now what you have here, the tote bag. And now what you're going to do is you're actually going to flip everything inside out. So it's almost like a complete tote bag. However, you need to add the lining. So this is what you should be working with at this point. Tote bag straps. It almost looks complete. However, we are not done yet. We still have to do the lining. So what you're going to do is you're going to make sure your straps are on the outside of the body, just like this, not like this, but like this. And then you're going to go in here and you're going to push out any seams that might occur, well, that have occurred. Push out the seams so they rest. And then you're going to take the lining you had before, the interior lining, the white that we had, and that opening we left before, we are going to put our bag in there. Sorry for the silence. I'm getting ready to show y'all. Okay. So for this one, it's essentially putting the bag inside the other bag. This is going to be your lining. And then what you're going to want to do here is you're actually going to pin along the outsides of this bag. And you're not going to pin the exteriors together. You are going to pin each lining like this. Make sure it lines up. And we're going to pin along here. We're not going to do three sides, we're just doing the top so we connect the inner and exterior linings. And then we are almost done. And I find it easier to do one side at a time. And when you do this, you actually are going to leave a little space open for where you can pull the bag from the inside out to get your final product. So I'm going to keep this. I'm actually going to leave this spot right here open for me later. And I'm going to start here. And on this seam, you're going to leave a 1/2 inch seam allowance again, just like we did with the inner lining and exterior lining when we were binding them together. So I'm going to move the camera. Here we go. the left, just like that, you're going to pull your new tote bag through. There you go. You're going to push the lining in. Alright. And once you have pulled everything through and pushed the lining back in, this is what you should be left with. Lining. And then, you left a hole there. So you're actually going to fix this when you top stitch over everything. Not everything, but the seam that you just made. And you could flatten this out with an iron if you wish. For now, we are just going to press everything in and go ahead and top stitch. And you can pin everything as well, but to your preference at this point. And for your top stitch over this, it's actually going to be an 1/8 of a seam. Alrighty, that top stitch is now done, and so is your tote bag. You can get rid of it. This is now your new tote bag. Congratulations. And now we can sign up. Thank you so much for joining me today. And I hope you all have fun with your new tote bag and showing it off. Thanks, guys.